Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Soul Goals Podcast. I'm Dawn, and I'm so glad you're joining me today. This podcast is dedicated to bringing people's stories to light and hearing their journeys of inspiration and self-growth. But it's also about connection and knowing that you are not alone. Each week, I get the chance to sit down and talk with an amazing soul, someone I've had the blessing of either meeting or following in my life. I am so grateful for my guests. Their openness and their vulnerability, it is unmatched as we share heartfelt conversations together about both their challenges and their triumphs. I hope that you can grab some inspiration and connection from my guests and their stories. I know I certainly have with each conversation. What an honor to sit with these brave souls. Everyone has a story, folks. And every story matters. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Soul Goals. My name is Dawn, and today we're going to take the podcast in a little bit different direction. We're still going to hear a very valuable story from an amazing soul today. Flatt is joining me from the Nashville, Tennessee area. We just found that out, interestingly, because he was talking before I hit the record about he's been in 4 states today via Zoom already. So you just count your hometown today. It's great. Yeah. Clark is the president, CEO, and founder of the Jason Foundation. Started here in the Nashville, Tennessee area. It's a not-for-profit organization that has grown extensively nationwide since then. And the Jason Foundation is an integral part of educating and bringing awareness to suicide prevention on multiple levels. You can get involved in the Jason Foundation on multiple levels, and you can learn about the signs and different things that are going on with the people in your community that really is valuable for you to know. I think as I was digging into researching, talking here, and getting through this, one of the most astounding statistics for me, and it was done in 2020, just recently, the CDC came out that suicide is actually the 3rd leading cause of death in our youth, ages 10 to 24. So like middle school or younger through college age. So it's a really big topic that I think needs to have some more awareness brought to it, continued awareness brought to it. And Clark's going to expound upon that a little bit more for us. I'm just so genuinely thankful for you being able to share your story today and talk about how this has impacted you and kind of what your why is behind the Jason Foundation. So without further ado, Flatt, my friends, thank you so much.
All right. Well, Dawn, thank you for having me. It's really an honor to be on your show and what you said on your podcast and the people that reach. We are always excited about being able to share about our mission and how we're trying to accomplish it, and the good folks that have helped us over the years to do this. As you said, I will correct one thing. I'm just president now. I used to be president and CEO, but I found out CEO did a lot of the work. So I separated it a few years ago. We had a person that had been with us since day one. She became the CEO. I stayed president so I could do fun things like this.
Oh, that's great.
And she did all the work.
I think that's a great idea.
But we started officially, the Jason Foundation started October the 1st, 1997. So we just celebrated 26 years. That's a long time for a nonprofit, especially one that was kicked off on a kitchen table in the back of an office room. And we operated that way for almost a year and a half, 2 years. So it was phenomenal. But the real starting of us came on July the 16th, 1997. That's when I lost my youngest son, Jason, who was age 16 at the time, to this terrible thing that we've labeled the silent epidemic of youth suicide.
Right.
When I lost Jason, we were a middle income class, maybe upper middle income. I owned an insurance company, a small company. We had the house overlooking the lake. I always loved sports cars, except for when I got in the nonprofit world. But then I could afford it. Had loved sports cars, had a boat, had 2 great boys, two great sons, good family, a great dog. Cat that I was a little suspicious of, but but it was a life that you would say that was just really a really good all-American type of life.
Yeah.
But on July the 16th, after receiving a call from one of Jason's friends, and it wasn't a call of alarm. It wasn't a call of you got to rush to find him. Just simply, had I seen Jason that day? And I said, well, when I left this morning, I did, but it's his day off from his summer job. And but if I hear from him, I'll let you know. But that was sort of odd. I don't get calls from his friends during the late morning. And why did they call me at the office? So long story short, I started to try to find Jason. And when I arrived home, I found that he had taken a weapon that I had locked up until 2 years prior. He'd written 2 notes and taken his own life. How did this happen to a family like ours? You just didn't have it. He was what I would call your all-American kid. Mm-hmm. And I need to preface that because that means different things to different people.
For sure.
He wasn't your valedictorian. He was more like his good old dad. I was a solid BC student and proud of it. Yeah. And he was too. He was very good in athletics, had a lot of good friends, very active in sports, very active in his church, no drug or alcohol issues. None of those things that most people would put their antenna up to say, well, we thought something like that would happen.
Right.
But yet on July the 16th, 1997, he made a decision that he couldn't take back.
Right.
And affected not only him, but his family and friends and community. It was after that a good friend stayed after me to find, did I understand what happened to Jason? And I had to say, you're really angry when somebody asks you that.
But yeah, I imagine.
And so, but they kept asking. And finally, I went back to my insurance agency, and I typed in on my old Radio Shack computer. You'd have to be old listening to your podcast right now.
So I remember those. Yeah, Radio Shack was a big deal for me.
Oh, it was.
Remember?
I typed in on that green and black screen, youth suicide. The first thing that came up then was from the CDC. It came up and said youth suicide was the 3rd leading cause of death at that day and time for 15 to 24.
Okay.
And when I saw that, that really was the start of the Jason Foundation, because as a parent, like many of the people listening to your podcast, I went to every PTO, PTA, every church meeting, anything about drugs, alcohol, even a form of bullying back then, anything that I could learn to help keep my 2 boys safe and provide them the best future possible. No one, though, and Jason's 16 years and his older brother at that time, 19 years old, no one had ever said, we're going to have a seminar on youth suicide and the dangers of it. Not that I didn't attend, there was never one. And so a group of friends and family, we got together and said, Jason wasn't going to become just another silent statistic. And we started the Jason Foundation on a kitchen table that we still have at our corporate office. And we started there. We would have kids come over after school to help us punch holes in programs that we were putting together, all volunteers at that time, and going out with a makeshift program. And it wasn't to scare people. It was really just a parent program we had. Yeah. To go out, we went to PTOs, we went to Kiwanis, Rotary, any place we could go. Yeah. And help educate about how at that time, the 3rd most likely thing to take your son or daughter's life was suicide. Yeah. Did you know that? And did you know what to do if you saw it? So we started the Jason Foundation with a hope that someday cover in Tennessee, and that was in October of 1997.
Yeah, and here we are in 2024, and you have grown so huge.
We have 218 affiliate offices located in 32 states, but we cover all 50 states.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. And you're offering education to individuals.
Yes, we don't do counseling. No, we don't do the counseling. Our whole program is, first of all, as we talked before we started, raising the awareness. We talk more about that, but then awareness is not all. We needed to provide the educational information, tools, and resources. Yeah. And we do it for the 3 groups that affect a young person's life. The young people themselves, they know the changes in their friends way before anybody else.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah.
Yes. And then teachers, which I think is probably one of the greatest sources, not making them counselors, but that are able to identify someone might be struggling with suicidal thoughts and then what to do.
Yes.
And then the last group are the parents.
Well, you said antenna up a little bit ago, and I thought that was really interesting because I would classify that as being an important part for teachers.
I think in Tennessee's been a leader on that. Now we have 21 states that's passed the Jason Flatt Act, but Tennessee was the leader. 2007, the first one. We went down and talked to a legislative leader at that time. She was went on into the U.S., but Senate, and House, not the Senate. Diane Black, and she took the idea of the Jason Flatt Act, and we got it passed in Tennessee.
Yeah.
And then it's important because it doesn't. I need to stress it. It doesn't make our teachers counselors. They have enough to do. Plus, on any of our training materials for teachers, it starts out by, don't think you're a crisis counselor after this.
Correct.
You are not. But you have learned more about how to identify or how to assist someone who comes up to you and struggling with thoughts of suicide.
Yeah. And I think somewhere I read on your site that it's not if, it's when they get approached. And I think that was pretty amazing. That was an amazing remark to me because, wow.
Well, one of the things we learn, we do a survey every year of over 1,000 teachers who've taken we want to make sure that we're accomplishing are we hitting the right buttons? Are we providing the information? So it's a pretty good, and I appreciate it. Some of them might be listening. The teachers to take the time, because it's not a 3 or 4 minute survey. It's an in-depth survey.
Yeah.
But we learn a lot from that. I learned something I'll never forget, and it's been the same on every survey. I always thought we're doing this to help teachers have the courage that they see a student that might be struggling. They see the warning signs, and they approach the student and say, can we talk? That was the number 2 concern. The number 2 scared this. Number 1 was the bell rings, everybody leaves, and somebody's still sitting at their desk. And then they get up and walk up to a teacher and say, can I talk to you for a minute? So actually the student coming to them was the greatest fear, because you're not prepared then, if you haven't been trained. And how do you react when someone puts their life in your hands?
Right.
That's the important thing. Our teachers play a tremendous role
absolutely.
in helping that.
And that's part of what that Jason Flatt Act is that was passed.
What we did was we took 2 hours of electives and made them into a required subject. Now, if I would have increased the overall hours of teachers, CEUs, I probably wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah. Yes. Understand.
Yeah, they have enough to do.
Right.
But we took the electives and moved them over. And you'd be amazed that the teachers that have taken our survey, like I said, at least 1,000 every year, usually it's 1,100 to 1,200. And we cut it off. We could get more. But how they say that this was probably something that they could really put their hands into that's going to help their careers, going to help them with the students. That makes you feel like you're accomplishing something there. And it's most of all helping the students.
Yes. But you're enabling that teacher to really go a little bit deeper and to understand, like you said a little bit ago, like that awareness about what to do and not to be fearful of it when it happens.
Teachers see our kids a lot plainer than we do as parents. I've always thought I can take a person and put them in a classroom to be trained as a teacher, and they're very eager. They want to learn. They want to absorb. I could take that same person and just change the situation. Say, now you're in a parent seminar, and they're most of the time not as eager to learn, because they say, I don't have to worry about my son or daughter. They're a good kid. They're an honor roll student. They're a leader in the classroom. They go to church. I don't have to worry about my son or daughter. And they don't pay the same attention. But I just described the number 1 person we're losing in America today as a young person to suicide.
Yeah. And I think we talked a little bit about that before I hit the record button, about that, the silent epidemic overall, but that is that's a real thing. That it's not me. That couldn't happen to us.
Well, we always have, and I had it too before I lost Jason. You have a picture, even if you have a picture in your mind of someone who would take their own life, it usually doesn't look like anything like your son or daughter, or your grandson or granddaughter, or the kid next door, or in your Sunday school class, or in your classroom. However, by far, the number 1 person we're losing today is that young person that you would look at and said had everything in the world to live for. That's by far the number 1 person that we're losing. If you look at it, the higher the aspirations, the greater area for disappointments or problems. You can go into we can spend the whole time talking about that.
Yeah.
But it's important that anyone listening to this, don't think just because there's no drug or alcohol problems, they've been a good person, and that they're not at risk.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that was interesting too, because when I was reading about some of your past and your story, is going to those meetings. And like you said a little bit ago, knowing that the importance of drug and alcohol awareness was and even the bullying you said
Right.
was being brought to that forefront, but nothing was being said about suicide.
Yeah.
Do you feel like outside of your foundation, if you could look kind of as a snapshot, do you feel like as a whole that suicide awareness has been addressed more so in the last maybe 5 to 10 years?
Especially the last 5 to 10. I'd say, we've been doing this for 26 years. The
Yeah.
first 10 to 15 were really tough years. The stigma, which is still out there,
Yes.
it's not gone completely.
Yeah.
But we used to have principals come up to us and say, "Clark, we can't we can't even train our teachers, can't do anything because
Mm.
if we talk about it, we'll cause it to happen." And that was a big myth. If you
Oh,
talk about
wow.
suicide, we did the same thing with sex education. When I was coming up through school,
Yeah.
nobody talked about it. Why? If you talk about it, you put the idea in their
Put it
head.
out there. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But little by little, we got past that stigma if we talk about it, and it
Mhm.
only this other improvement by talking about it in a very upfront and mature way. It
Yes.
only helps to prevent it, not cause it.
Yeah.
But the stigma was tough, and it's still out there. But
Mhm.
now we have had with, especially in Tennessee, and this is not a political ad or anything, but in Tennessee, we've really enjoyed especially Governor Lee is very high on mental health. But
Right.
we found that with other governors across the United States that there's a real openness of what can we do to help our children and
That's
young
great.
adults. I think we just can't think about the children through the 12th grade. When you look at ages 10 to 34, it's the second leading cause of death in our nation.
Right.
So, it's something that's affecting our young adults also.
Yeah. Do you feel like your foundation addresses that? That's another reach that you have is not
Oh,
just the
yeah.
youth awareness,
Yeah,
but
we pushed that out probably 7 or 8 years ago. We were really centered in on mostly 10 to 24.
Mhm.
What we found was a lot of the people that were struggling in at 10 and 20 years old, all at once now that the numbers were going up in the 30s and 34 and
Yes.
35 years old. So not even though it's not a really high impact area for us, we have expanded to reach that age group, especially we're now, and we'll talk about it later. We started another division that's dealing just with substance use disorder and opioid use disorder with
Okay.
correlating mental health issues around suicidal ideation. Be amazed at how many times someone that's having a substance abuse is also struggling with those same mental health issues that would be around suicide ideation.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I can buy that. Yeah, from what you're
And the
saying.
numbers, when you're having 70,000 people last year, 70,000 plus that died from opioid overdose, and conservatively, you can say 20 or 30% of those were what we call passive ideation. They didn't say, "I want to die," but they didn't care if they died.
Yeah.
That's why the overdose happened, in our opinion.
Yeah, and I think we overlook that aspect for
Yeah.
sure. That's really great. And you just started that portion of the foundation
Yeah,
recently?
we haven't even made the official. We'll do it in February.
Okay.
The press announcement, but we started December 1. Yes,
Okay, got
right.
it. 4 out of 5 individuals consider suicide at some point, and they show
No,
signs in some
no, it's different.
capacity?
Yeah, they show signs. 4 out of 5 people who will attempt suicide will demonstrate clear warning signs, either verbally or physically or both
Mm,
ways.
yeah.
That's what. So we're not having to raise money to do research and all this, even though it still needs to be done. We need to
Yes.
understand it more. But still, with what we have right now, 4 out of 5 people that will attempt suicide will have demonstrated clear warning signs. That's why that's my incentive for pushing on.
Mhm.
80% of the time, if we know what to look for and how to appropriately respond, we have a chance to avert a suicide attempt or
Yes.
especially a suicide death. And
Yes.
80% of the time is pretty good.
That's a
And we
huge
are
number.
starting to work on that other 20%. That's something that we're finding out more clinically too. But 80% will demonstrate warning signs. But you got to know what to look for because it is not secret signs, but a lot of them are the same as adolescence.
Right.
You got to learn how to look for them in combination and intensity.
Okay.
That's the key.
Combination and intensity. If you look back, like a fly on the wall, back to when you were a parent, do you recognize any of the things that you have learned along this path
Oh,
in your
sure.
son?
I've often told people when I've been able to speak to parent groups, and don't get to do that as much as I used to, but
Mhm.
because of administration part things. But I would say if somebody would have had, and not just us, we have a great parent seminar, but there's some other, there's local play, there's other mental, we don't have the corner on it. But if I had gone through our own parent seminar, Jason would probably be alive today.
Okay.
It's some of the things that I discounted, some of the things that I would say was just adolescence, or I had an answer for.
Okay.
I knew why he was asking that way. He told me in June that he didn't want to play football anymore. And we were sitting on the front porch, and it was June night, and just sort of talking and cutting. And he said, "Oh, by the way, I'm not going to play football this August. I'm not going to go back." And see, he that was his whole life. He loved football. He loved the friends that were there, from the band to the cheerleaders to his own players. That was his family.
Mm-hmm.
But see, he had gone through where they had lost a state championship the fall before that.
Okay.
The spring practice had been very intense and tough. And I said, well, he's just worn out. Had a tough year. They lost the championship. They had a tough spring practice. He's just a little worn out. And I answered that myself. And I told him, just wait till August. If you don't want to play, you don't got to play. Yeah. Let's make that decision in August. Yeah. I should have said, why don't you want to play? That was a question.
A little bit deeper.
And dig a little deeper. Plus his grades, it started slipping some. He stopped associating with some of his friends. They didn't go out as much. Not any single thing should have been that antenna going up saying, there's suicide. He's thinking about suicide.
Yeah.
But them putting it together can say there was something going on emotionally and mentally in his life that we could have dug deeper on.
Right. I think you bring up a real...
Gets blamed on a trigger event. That didn't cause it. Breaking up with a boyfriend or girlfriend, failing a test, not getting into school that your parents went to, that alone, most of the time, would not be anywhere close to have someone take their life.
Right.
But it can be that trigger.
There's a ball of things behind it, usually, is what I hear you saying. Right. Yeah.
And look for that trigger.
Yeah. And how hard is that I mean, as a parent, I think about, my reflection with parenting my girls, it's that adolescence. How much do we count for that adolescent part of it? And how much do we take into account as this is a real thing to pay attention to?
I have a really easy answer to that one. It's if you have enough where it caught your attention.
Okay.
And it's enough to talk to them about. And if you don't get an answer that you feel comfortable about, it's enough to talk to a professional about. I'd much rather a professional, which has happened where we've told a parent to do this, and the professional says they are having some issues, but it's just growing up issues. There's some issues there. Yeah. Hey, we're going to be talking with them some, maybe do through a few sessions, but there's no ideation there. There's no suicide idea. And that's okay. But I wonder if you'd rather err on that side.
Right.
Then say, I didn't ask and something happened like I did. I tell parents, they say, well, Clark, you shouldn't feel, I share about what things I missed. And I've had some really well-intentional people come up and say, you shouldn't feel guilty. Well, I feel sorry that I didn't know and I wasn't able to respond, but there's no guilt because I didn't know. If I knew and I didn't respond, then there's guilt. And what I'll tell them, no, anybody can feel guilty. It's going to be the people I'm talking to tonight. Because you're going to know now.
Yeah.
My question is, will you respond? That's the question.
That is, man, that's a really vulnerable and integrous piece for me to hear you say as a parent. I think you probably had to get to that point through your healing process as well, I'm sure.
And in a lot of ways. And we get a lot of accolades, like you said, about the Jason Foundation. First of all, I have to say, and I'm not being humble, it's so many people that have made us where we are here today. But really, I started that in October. It was not for me wanting to go out and be a crusader and for suicide awareness and prevention. I think it was really a therapy for myself.
Okay.
I needed to do something to this thing that took my son's life. And so I personalized, and I still to this day have, I've personalized suicide. And that's the person, that's the thing that everything I do, I'm going after it. And every person we can keep from making that choice, or that's another time we've hit that with a blow. So it's selfish on my part.
Well, it's selfish, but it's not selfish. I mean, I understand when you say that, because I feel like there's a big piece of parents that will hear this and be like, that I can't imagine how he could feel that way. but until you're walking in those shoes, and your goal with the Jason Foundation is to not have to walk in those
No,
shoes.
no. Anybody loses a son or daughter, I don't care how you lose them.
Yeah.
It puts a hole in your heart that I will tell them you'll never replace that hole.
Right.
You'll never do it, but you can, and you must have to figure out a way to make a new normal. And some people, I've had people get mad at me, parents, when I say, I'm not going to forget my son or daughter. I didn't say forget them. You have to become a new normal,
Yes.
where that they fit in, but they don't fit in here currently today. They're not physically here.
Right.
So how can you still have them a part of your life, but you have a new normal? The saddest thing, and I have two images in my mind of people that I know that did this, lost, one of them lost a son, one of them lost a daughter, and they were never able to find that new normal. And it destroyed their lives. It destroyed their marriages. It destroyed their families. So not only was there a tragedy of losing a son or a daughter to suicide, there's a tragedy you've lost the whole family. And how would your son or daughter, if you're spiritual and think about them in heaven looking down, how did they think that I did something? And I truly say this to parents: when your son or daughter takes his or her life, they were mentally ill at that point. A person would not take their own life without being mentally ill. I have a lot of people want to really get after me when I say that, because they don't want to believe their son or daughter. But there's a lot of people walking around today that are mentally ill, that are functional.
Like high functioning for sure.
With anxiety, depression, they learn to mask it and things. So, but when you get to that point of you actually you're not, our basic understanding of life is we want to cling to it no matter what.
Right.
So at that moment, they were ill. So we have to show them that we understand that. They didn't do that to hurt us. They didn't do that to hurt someone else or get back at something. They were not themselves at that moment.
How long, or maybe not how long, but what was your process on getting to that point for you? Because it seems it's very healthy. And I know that you said that the creation and kind of the institution of the foundation was your therapy.
Oh, it's still, today I can hear a special song. I won't divulge it, but it's a funny little song that we used to sing in the car with my oldest son and Jason. And we would stop at one part and make him sing it. He would never sing it. He'd just look at us kind of mean. And but when I hear that song today, I still tear up. And I remember that really funny moments when we would do that to him and say, okay, we're singing the song. We turn to him for the little chorus line, and he would just look at us.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's my new normal. I'm remembering him, and you shouldn't get it to a point where it never hurts. I'm not saying that,
right?
But you can't let it become the theme of your day, that you get up in the morning and you're consumed by that loss, and you go to bed at night still being consumed by it. Right. You have to learn to function, and the foundation has given me a way to funnel that into a particular things. And not everybody loses somebody to start a foundation. It's very difficult. And
for sure.
And especially today, more so than when we started. But find something to center into.
Right. I think that's valuable information. Find something that you can do to I think you can still bring honor to that memory, and you can still be attached to that, but in a healthy way that you're still supporting and taking care of yourself.
Right. And my people have said, well, when do I know I'm getting better? I have a rule of thumb it only happened to me. So it's not clinical, but it is for me.
Yeah.
It's the first time that my oldest son and me, we were sharing a story about Jason. And at the end of the story, instead of just going, yeah, we miss him, we both was just laughing like crazy about it. Like, remember when he did that? And once you're able to laugh and when you remember an instant, not that you're over it, but you're starting that right way of putting that in a right context of memory, but not consuming you in a negative, depressive way. Right. But still, we have a huge problem in our state. We have a huge problem in the United States with this. I'd love to say we're going in the right direction, but we're not. We're going backwards.
Okay. Can you speak to that a little bit more?
Yeah, the numbers. And I don't want to blame COVID. I'm tired of hearing everything that we order copy paper and they'll say it's going to be an extra week because of COVID. Now that's getting less, but
right. But I understand where you're going with
everybody. But there is no doubt that COVID, and specifically the way we had to handle it, and I'm not being that we handled it wrongly.
Yeah.
That was a way that has really impacted our youth and young adults.
Okay.
The way we handled of shutting down basically the community, of shutting down the peer support groups, of shutting down the school.
Mm-hmm.
We are just now, we haven't even peaked in a lot of our people we deal with. We haven't even peaked in the impact that's made on mental health.
Yeah.
It's really the numbers that you have. We still use 2021 numbers because those are the only ones that have been verified. 2022 is out, and 2023 is provisional type of numbers. But if you want to use something that you can compare to others that have been audited, it's 2021.
Mm-hmm.
That's right before the really pandemic hit hard. So what we're seeing in those provincial numbers in 2022, and some that were brave enough to put them out in 2023, there's been some really huge impacts in those, the suicide ideation, as well as the actual suicide attempts.
Yeah. I feel like I hear a lot about the suicidal ideation more now than I ever did.
Yes. Well,
And
part of that is the awareness too. People are
okay.
more open to talk about it.
Okay, which is great. Can you tell me a little bit more about how the Jason Foundation helps to bring that awareness? What are some of the tools that you use? What are some of the ways that people can get that information and learn more about what they can know?
Well, that's a good question. We things like this. We take advantage of anything where we can go out and talk when we know we're doing it with a good service, a qualified place. There are some people who want to bend things and stuff like that, but really, social media. I just had one of my calls today was somebody wanting me to get on a soapbox and help them charge especially the U.S. legislative things on some of the things that are up there on social media. And there's some things out there. There's some negative parts of that we should be addressing,
right?
Especially with AI getting involved. But but still, it's so easy for us to jump on a soapbox and shake our fist and say, well, my son or daughter is not what they're supposed to be. They have a drug problem. They have an emotional problem, a mental health problem, but it's not my fault. It's not the family's fault. It's not their fault. It's social media. And they're right. Social media can have a very negative impact. Not saying that at all, but it also is a very, very useful tool. We touch hundreds of thousands of people each year with information that they probably wouldn't have got if they hadn't been on it. With tools and information of connecting them to resources that if you're having a question or you're having a problem, here's some places you can go. Here's some people you can talk to. So social media, in the broadest sense, the platforms such as Facebook and things like that, but also things of, I turned down one, Brett, who you've been talking with in our office. They came to us and we have what we call Project Tennessee, which is if we could get every state to do that, we would be in so much. It is a very intense awareness plus resource sharing type of program. We're in our third year of it now.
Right.
But he brought some people in to talk to me about digital marketing.
Okay.
I won't say how old I am, but I've got a few years on me.
Okay.
And these people sat down, and it was not cheap, but they were telling me how many people we could reach. And when they got to the part, they said, we're going to be doing this over people who are watching TV on their iPads and tablets and things like that. And I went, guys, nobody watches Jeopardy on their iPad or their iPad. Right. They watch that on TVs. They don't watch it on that. And they kept after me and finally talked me into a small, like a 6-month trial on it. Okay. And it is phenomenal.
Great.
What you can do with it as far as targeting. We can geographically target a small area with a special message. And it is so much of a useful tool.
Yeah. And I imagine so too, because then if you know that the target market that is being affected so greatly, then you can send that information into there so much more easily.
Especially what type of show you're going to play it on. Who's watching these shows? And they know that. They'll tell you the breakdown of ages, marital status, income. So it really allows us to customize the message for the particular group. So social media and actually technology around media as a whole, it's the only way that you can touch as many people We trained, just got the numbers in Tennessee. We trained over 58,000 teachers last year
Oh, wow.
in Tennessee with a two hour training.
Oh, wow.
So,
It's great.
but you can't do that without technology.
Yeah.
We couldn't be large enough to do that, to be in all these different schools at the same time.
Yeah, it's a give and take. And I think you just have to figure out what direction is most important. And speaking to that, like you said a little bit ago about parents will say, oh, it wasn't our fault. It wasn't this one's fault. It's all social media. I can you speak a little bit more to what your experience has been, what you have seen in terms of the big bubble of all the things that it could be? I mean, how important is the social media experience at this point for the youth in terms of
Well,
that affecting them
uh,
in a
you know,
negative way?
well, they get regretfully. I was talking this the other day. You go sit down in any restaurant you want to, even if you see a family there. It's not just the young people with their phones in front of them. Usually it's mom and dad with their phones.
Yeah.
And I can't stand it. And it shows my age when I sit down and I see a family of 4 or 5 sitting down. They're not talking. They're not saying what went on. They're not
Mhm.
saying, how was your day? They're all sitting there looking at their iPhone. So, you can't say that the impact it's making on it, and it can make a negative impact. Someone that's wanting to hurt themselves.
Right.
There's sites out there on social media, especially not social media, but websites that actually give you instructions on how to commit suicide.
Yeah.
Those are terrible. I mean, that's
Right.
just I've shown them to some senators and Congress people, and they said we were to stop this, but we can't, especially if it's originating from the UK or
Right.
overseas somewhere. So,
Right.
but you can't stop it. But how can you counteract it? That's the big problem.
Okay. So
Yeah,
that's ideally the message that we want to say. It's counteracting it.
right,
It's getting that awareness so that you can, that the 80% that you were
right.
talking about.
And no, and to learn, we want the young people to learn those. We have a student curriculum that's in the schools, usually a middle and high school.
Mhm.
It's usually presented in a health class.
Yeah.
But it's good that they learn that it's okay to talk. It's okay to share this, that I have a concern about a friend, not just yourself. We don't talk about introspection. I'm
Yeah.
worried about a friend. I'm worried about someone who's talking about this. And they got to know it's okay to talk about it and then know what those signs are. So,
Yeah.
and as we've talked already, the teachers and then the community as a whole, the parents, if
Yeah.
we learn what to look for, yes, we got an 80% chance to identify and help, and it
Right.
can be helped. I always say it's not, and I get some psychiatrists and people sort of angry at me sometimes. I tell them what you're doing is buying us time. Now there are some serious mental health issues that you have to have that doctor
Yeah.
there, and it might even take medications. But a lot of it is giving a young person what I call the life experience.
Okay.
That's not going to be the thing that defines your life forever. Now, we know that because we've lived a few years.
Yeah.
When you're only 14, 15, or 16,
It's
you don't
different.
see it. Yes. So
Yeah.
that life experience, having that time of elongating that time where they learned that, yes, that was not something I enjoyed going through, but
Yeah.
I'll get through it, and I'll make it through it again if necessary. So,
Yeah, I love that you're impacting youth in that way and that you're going into schools and doing that kind of program because for me, it looks at if there's any kind of inkling in any of their brains about this. I mean, you're not objectifying them and say like you're forcing them to be introspective, but
no,
they're in general, they're being introspective
yeah.
as to what they can
Right.
emotionally be.
What I've always said, if you're teaching someone, and we make it for sure, and we tell teachers and especially heads of schools, we're not having introspection. I think that would be somewhat, if you're saying, hey, are you feeling this way? Are you
Mhm.
having anxiety? Are you thinking about hurting yourself?
Yeah,
You could call someone to pull back in and be dangerous.
totally.
Right. But if
Yeah.
you're saying you're learning this to help a friend or help one of your classmates, you're learning this to be able to see if somebody might be struggling and
Yeah.
you can help maybe save their life. But at the same time, you're learning that for your friend. What are you doing? You're learning it for yourself too, without
Right.
being told to be introspective. So
Yeah, yeah, so it's very holistic then for that youth. I
and we
think
even
that's
had it
great.
change where not just saving an individual's life, but identifying it where they. We had a story about 3 years ago, well, right before COVID. One of the kids went to his counselor and said, "I know this. My friend is thinking about killing himself because I went through that training that y'all have, and it told me to bring this to you."
Oh,
And
wow.
that actually got brushed off at first, but I went on to the assistant principal. Said, "I'm worried." And they brought the young person, talked to him, was concerned enough that they went and opened his locker, and he had a weapon in his locker.
Oh.
And he had a list, though, of people that he wanted to take out before he took himself out. So that one young person that said, hey, I want, my friend needs some help, no telling how many people he might have saved. So it's even a broader sense of that. So there's some other, the Jason Foundation, we have great programs, but there's some other organizations out there too. The main thing is for you listeners, find somebody. If your school's teachers are not being trained, make sure they get trained. I don't care who does it. Make sure they get trained.
Right.
Make sure the students are getting the information, and the parents too.
Yes. But knowledge comes power. It's empowering to know that. And not just on the exterior level, but on the interior level. I just think that's really brilliant, because it's addressing a youth that's still developing physically, mentally, emotionally, all the things. How you approach the subject matter and not create something that is fearful, or like you said a little bit ago, like they're going to back up and they're going to back off of it, is it's super, super important.
Yes. And it's got to be, and it's affecting, as you said, the intensity. You know, one of the stats that you were mentioning that really stands out, impacts me as long as I've been into this, is the ages 10 to 14. And we're talking about 2021. So that's the one that's verifiable.
Right.
2021, 10 to 14-year-olds, I can remember a time it wasn't even statistically significant. It wasn't even reported. And that's how long I've been in it. I mean, it was just not an age group.
Yeah.
And we saw it come into a view where they were starting to track it. For the last two reporting times, and 2021 being the last one, but I think you're going to see it at the same place when the new ones come out. That suicide is now the second leading cause of death for 10 to 14-year-olds. If you think about that, I call that the Scooby-Doo crowd. I mean, the second most likely, if you have a son or daughter, or a grandson or granddaughter, 10 to 14 years old, in the United States today, the second most likely thing to take their life is suicide. And if you're not aware of that, you're certainly not looking for the warning signs.
Right. That bingo right there.
And you only see it then after it happens.
Yeah.
Or if you're lucky enough, after just an attempt.
Right. That's not successful, so that you can, then you're really aware, and then you can dig in. And we don't want it to get to that point.
No, because once they get to the point once, it's easy to get back that point. If you don't, what bothers me a lot of times too, we found out that the suicide that's happened wasn't the first attempt, and the way the others was handled was they basically say, "You're not going to do that again anymore." That was just a weak moment. I will never do that again. And they don't follow up and get the clinical and emotional mental health that they need to help that person make sure they've backed off that ledge.
Yeah.
And so that's something you don't ever need to handle. I've been in this 26 years, and I wouldn't even dare think that I would do a counseling or at least talk to one person 2 or 3 times and think that it's all over. No, you've got to make sure that you've built a support system there for them.
Right. A support system that they feel they can trust as well.
Yes.
Yeah. And I feel like probably when parents, teachers, specifically an adult goes through some kind of training that you have on the awareness, that the protocol that you have, that that kind of brings that out. It makes them confident to know what they're doing. And it makes when someone is approached by a child, by a youth, it gives a trust that they can automatically just emit that to that child.
And that's important. I know, a young person, it's a little skewed, but it's always been one that's intrigued me. And in that survey I talked about, that we also had a survey that corresponded with young people, and we asked them after going through the thing,
oh yeah,
okay, who would you turn to help a friend?
Yeah.
You know, a friend who might be struggling. Who would you turn to? Now, the reason I said it might be skewed, they're doing this because they just finished a training thing in school.
Okay.
So they're going to think around the school thing.
Yeah.
But the answer by far was a teacher. I would go to a teacher, not your parents, not the pastor,
Yeah.
But so I did that. We did that a couple of years, and we were looking over all the information stat. And I said, that's not good enough. Let's ask them not a name, but what type of teacher? Don't
Oh,
just
wow.
say teacher.
Take it a step further.
Yeah, is it an English teacher, a health teacher? A health teacher that's usually doing the training.
Uh-huh.
What type of position would you go to? Boys and girls both. And we did it for 2 years in a row. By far, they still said teacher, but it was a coach.
Oh my goodness. Clark.
Now that's spooky that they
Yeah.
all felt like that the person they could go to that is this coach. I've had coaches put their newspaper down during training when
And
they heard
just
that.
be like floored.
Yeah, because you see, and it makes sense. They've built up, even if you don't play sports for them, everybody knows, oh, Coach so and so's a good guy, a good girl. She'll listen to you. He'll listen to you. They're one of us. They're a teacher, but it's important that you know who they might turn to.
Exactly. Can you speak a little bit more? And we brought it up earlier to the Jason Flatt Act and what that involves so that people are aware of what that is. And you said that it is started in Tennessee,
Yes,
but that it's now in 21 states currently?
21. And we passed in 21. It's effective in 20 now because one passed it. This was early on. I didn't know that, and I was very naive in legislative matters and probably still am. But one state had put a clause in there that in 5 years it had to be renewed by the legislators. Of course, this was early on when we were doing this, so everybody was still like, I don't know if this is a good thing or not.
Right.
And we didn't know the clause was in there. So when it came up and the people that had sponsored it were not still in that same state legislature. So it just went away and nobody peeled it. So, but in 20 states, and we have about 7 other states that have passed almost the same thing, but called it something else.
Okay.
But that's okay. They're doing it. What we saw was we were doing prior to 2007, we were offering the training, but it was offered as an elective. And if you look at a particular state, the line of electives it just goes on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody might not say, well, hey, I'm going to do something. It's a bright, sunny day, like you was talking about it in Nashville. I'm going to look at a suicide prevention tape.
Yeah, this is on the top of my list today. Yeah.
Maybe not at the top of the list.
Yeah.
But it can be so important.
Yeah.
So after we dealt with that, we went and like I said, we wanted to make it use required. Now, 2 reasons. First of all, I think that every teacher should be armed with that. It should, because it is such a huge problem. They should be armed. And second of all, being required is, if it's not, how would you like to have a son or daughter in middle school or high school? And just because the teacher they got or teachers they got that didn't train, then they took their life, compared to if they'd been with a different teacher who was trained, they might have seen those signs and got them help.
Yeah.
So you want it for everybody. And so right now we won't even talk to a state unless they make it required.
Yeah.
One thing that makes them interested, we told them in 2007, if a state will do this, we'll promise that it won't cost, there'll be no fiscal note for the state.
Okay.
Jason Foundation said, we guarantee that. Now, in 2007, that was a real leap of faith for the state of Tennessee.
For sure.
We're going to believe in the Jason Foundation. But now it's been going since 2007, and not a single state has paid a penny out of their pocket that have passed the Jason Flatt Act, beyond what they normally was going to pay for their own administrative of keeping their records, and that we don't get involved. We're talking about the actual providing of the training.
Right.
So now we can say that without any kind of sort of holdback that we can do that.
And I think it's important to mention here that the training is complimentary.
Yes. Yeah. It doesn't cost. We've never charged a teacher, a school, or a district.
Zero. Nothing.
Zero. And that's been all of our programs since 1997.
Yeah.
We've never charged. Now, in 1997, it wasn't hard. Our budget in 1997 was $2,500.
Yeah.
And so that was not hard. Today, it's a lot different than that.
Yeah. And so if we go back for just a second, do you, like, when you started that in 2007, and it was just that in that infancy state, I mean, were there moments where you were like, this is just too difficult to do? This is too hard?
About the Jason Foundation or the Jason Flatt Act? The
Jason Foundation.
We started in 1997.
Yeah.
Oh, when you started, it's tough because of hitting really the only time I ever got discouraged greatly that I remember is when I would hit the stigma. When I still remember a school in Tennessee. It's on the southern border of one of our states down there.
Okay.
But it was in Tennessee. I can't name it because it's in your viewing things.
Right.
But the president of their student body sent me a letter And it was said, we've lost 3 students in the last 12 months to suicide.
Mm.
We need your help, Mr. Flatt. Please come down and help us, help with the students, help us know what to do, help our teachers know what to do. And it was a really wonderful letter. And he was signing it as president of his school, his council. Well, I contacted him and said, hey, I can't come by your invitation, but if you'll have the principal call me. If the principal says we can come down, we do it, and we don't charge anything.
Yeah.
Well, the principal did call, and it was a gentleman, probably about my age now. And he told me he was very sorry to hear about Jason. He was looked at our website and was so sorry about my loss. But he said, I can't have you come here to our school. He said, if you come here and you start talking about it, you're going to put the idea in these young people's minds, and we can't do that.
Yeah.
And I said, that was probably my motive. I said, sir, you've had 3 kids take their life in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
They're talking about it. They're wondering why you're not talking about it. But he was so engraved with that thought of, if I talk about it, I'll cause it.
Yeah.
He never did. I made him my project to turn him around, and I never did turn him around.
Oh, yeah.
Never did.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he passed away a few years after that. And the person that took his place, one of the first things they did was contact us.
Okay.
And it wasn't because that guy was a bad guy. I'm not saying that at all.
No.
Just that way of thinking.
Right. It's just the mentality.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I couldn't break it. I tried.
Would you say that was probably one of your biggest hurdles to date? Or do you have other things that have been?
That was about that. And now with the Jason Flatt Act, what I was talking to a national lobbyist about something out this week. And I said, I couldn't do what you did. I can't do what you do. Not that legislators or politicians are bad people. It's a different world that I found out. We've actually had legislators fight the Jason Flatt Act when you have SAMHSA, the CDC, all the data that's out there showing that by training your teachers, you actually can decrease suicide attempts and suicides.
Right.
And then you can't say, well, it costs too much. We can't do that. Well, you have an organization that's been doing it for 26 years that says they'll do it. They're a leader in the nation for this, and they won't charge you anything. Away with that. And then to have somebody stand up on the legislative floor and vote against it simply because of politics, because of who sponsored it, they don't like.
Yeah. They're making it personal instead of keeping it open to the idea of what this is really about.
Oh, I had a head of the Senate, which again, I won't name the state. It's a close state to us. Yeah. The Jason Flatt Act, and it still hasn't passed in that state. Oh. It passed the House. It passed the Senate committees. It was all it had to do was go on the floor of the Senate for a confirmation vote, and it was going to be law. The head of the Senate would never put it on the agenda to be voted on.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Well, I showed myself on that one. That's the only one I've ever called back, and I got a hold of him, and I told him, "Sir, you just cost some young people their lives in this state. No doubt about it.
No, knowing all of this and listening to you speak, I have no doubt about that either.
No. But when politics get that nasty, that's the hardest part for me personally is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
When I see that they're keeping this away from a kid that 12 months from today would be alive if they, not because we're so great. It's just basic training, training.
Yeah. And stepping out of that stigma, like you've talked about, and just being brave enough to know.
Embrace the ones that do and be happy about them and keep chugging.
Yeah. Yeah. That's all you can really do. And you're effectively operating at a place where you're offering such beautiful awareness to people. And you're always going to have people that are going to push it to the side, and
we help those that want to be helped. And not forget the other ones, but that gives us more than we do. If you think about, we just finished our year-end report, and it's something you can get back and go, wow, look at these hundreds of thousands of people that we've touched and things like that. But when you look at it in a broad scheme of things, we're still just a little pebble in the big ocean. So,
but you're making differences.
Our goal is one person at a time.
Yeah.
you know.
Do you get stories back from parents, from teachers?
Yes. We get emails, we get phone calls.
Yeah.
They're not in big, vast number. In fact, I get a little suspicious when I have some other groups start talking about they've got filing cabinets full of such reports and stuff. Because
Okay.
really, you don't really, even if it's successful, how many times would somebody go pick up a phone and say, listen, I was going to take my life, but I didn't do it.
Yeah.
It's still like I didn't do it. And I want to push myself back away from that. But
Yeah.
we get some of those, and especially from teachers that will call and say, I want to thank you for the training. It made me ask a question,
Yeah.
and the young person is getting help because of that. So it's not even
Mhm.
an end result yet, but the young person's getting help because of that.
Right. It's
Those are
effective.
those are good.
Yeah, that's great. Can you speak a little bit to the social media point about the goodness of the social media? There's a hashtag out there that's a movement called "I Won't Be Silent."
Right. That's the national thing is I won't be silent.
Mhm.
And really what we did is we're trying to get more people involved who are not just the teachers or, if you go on the site, I won't be silent, you'll see that you can take a picture of yourself and it'll
Yeah.
frame it and put it in there. And it's saying, I won't be silent. We have a lot of people take it with their kids and say, I won't be silent. What it's trying to do is give it in a positive. This is raising what we say. If you look at the little, it's raising the positive conversation about suicide awareness and prevention
Yeah. Yeah.
instead of being, oh, I don't want to talk about it. We're wanting to talk about it because we can do something about it.
Yeah.
The CDC and SAMHSA both calls it a leading cause of death in
Mhm.
our nation, not just for youth, but for our population. It's a
Right.
leading cause of death, but also they say it's a leading cause of preventable death. And
Right. There's a difference right there.
there he is. And so,
Preventable death. Yeah.
that's the big thing that we try
Mhm.
to stay on top of, that it is preventable. Now, I had a lady really was angry at me because we have billboards in Tennessee around the things. We took the I Won't Be Silent and went to Tennessee Won't Be Silent. And
Yeah.
it's actually a website there, Tennessee Won't Be Silent.com. It's
Okay.
that same, and we are now duplicating that in Louisiana, and we're duplicating it in Illinois. We hope
Okay.
to do others, but it brings it even more down to say, as a Tennessean, I won't be silent. But we
Yes.
have billboards saying that suicide is one of the leading causes of preventable death, and she had
Mhm.
lost her, I think it was her daughter to suicide, and she said, I did everything I could do. It wasn't preventable, and she really felt that billboard was a guilt thing for her,
Yeah.
and I felt sorry. I told her it's not. It is a leading cause. It's a preventable leading cause of preventable death, but it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that all of them are preventable. And
Right.
but it really that bothered me that it something we were doing so positive that
Right.
most 99 out of 100 people would take it positive, that it hurt her. I hate things like that when you're trying to do something good, but I have to back up and know that what we did was clinically sound or it
Completely.
was the right thing, but still it hurt me that it hurt her.
Yeah. I understandably, and I could see both sides of it. I could see like you're walking in her shoes, but she's also not walking in your shoes either. So it's creating a place of non-judgment for the other
Right.
person and knowing that you're doing the best. She's doing the best that she can with what she has, and you're doing the best that you can with what you have. And you've been able to really effectively raise such a good message and a good awareness for
Yeah.
this.
And I would, because I know your podcast gets out outside of Tennessee and everything else, but
Yes.
we have Tennessee Won't Be Silent. I Won't Be Silent as a mirror from it. What I like about those two sites, it gives you ideas about how you can become involved as a housewife or as a bank teller or a head of a company,
Right.
what you can do to help prevent suicide in your community.
Right.
So, wherever level you're at in a community, you'll find ways that you can get involved without spending any money. It's not costing you something to.
Right.
It will share ways you can get involved to raise that positive conversation and help make lives better and save lives in your
Right.
community.
Right.
So that's one of our best things is the I Won't Be Silent or the Won't Be Silent type of program. It's
Right.
trying to get everybody. And if we ever to whip this, it's going to take individuals in
Yeah.
communities saying that they won't be silent. That's the only way we're ever going to whip it
Yeah.
on them.
You've got to go
Yeah,
direct. You got to go in.
right.
You got to go all in. Yeah, I totally. Where do you see the Jason Foundation being in the next 5 to 10 years? What's your goal? I know you had talked about something you're getting ready to launch.
Right.
But we'll still hold off
You
on that a bit.
that's a really good question. We have a great board of directors, and uh, they're interest passionate, and they hear these things from these other uh, types of nonprofit board. And they'll say we need a 3 or 5 year strategic plan, and it sounds great if you read all the stuff. It is wonderful. But I tell them I might can give you a 12-month strategic plan because opportunities. And directions change for us just with a report that's put out by the government, or maybe something that's happened that changes the whole dynamics of it. It's hard to say. We're growing now. I'm when we first started the Jason Foundation, I said I never want to get large enough that I don't know everybody that works for the Jason Foundation.
Okay.
I want to know them. I want to know their families. I want to know. I want to be able to walk in a room and say, "Hi, Joe," or "Hi,
Yeah.
Jane." How's Billy, or how's Sue? And we quickly got away from that in 2001, 2002, and now I have JFI reps that work for us that I've never met, and
Yeah.
and that's sort of. But yet, if we're going to meet the people that we've got to and do the services, we have to do that. Right now, we're at 218 affiliate offices, and we're growing. We're having some real discussions now about growth. I really see us going above probably 300 before the end of this year.
Oh, that's wonderful.
The growth. What scares me more than anything is growing too fast and out of control.
Yeah.
We have to be able to make sure we maintain the quality and control.
Yeah.
So, but I see us at that point of being in that 300 range by the end of the year. And what that means is more diverse. We still have to grow our same three basic programs. You have to change new stats, new information, new clinical information that comes out. We're very careful to make sure we have the best clinical information possible at that time. So we have to stay on top of all that. But then, like we said, rolling out the new division, that is going to, it is. I've been working with our director on that for the last 6-8 months.
Yeah.
It is phenomenal what is going on between the, first of all, if you just look at the drug use, the opioid use disorders, and it's scary. It is scary. And they're not going down. And it's not the person that we would have in our mind that's the drug addict underneath the bridge or that type of thing. It's the pastor or the coach, the people next door that are good, solid citizens, but they've got tied into, whether it's through an accident or through pain medicine or recreational, somehow or other, went down that road. And once it gets a hold of you, it is a nasty monster within itself. Then you look at the anxiety and depression and things that comes from that. That's going to be a monumental challenge for us.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to the growth of that over the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, that's great. I love what you said when I asked that question. You said about the 12 months, about expanding on opportunities that come along.
Right.
So you're keeping it like you're expanded, and you know where you're headed, but you're also keeping you're keeping yourself open to avenues that this we may have to turn right here instead of left.
And I never know what's going to. I mean, that's what the fun part about this job. Just the person I might talk to today that's in a committee meeting. We talked about the Zoom meetings I had this morning.
Yeah.
It's been not unusual. Somebody say, "Can I contact you after the meeting?" And that person changes the way the Jason Foundation does something because they let us know about something or have a resource about something.
Yeah.
We've had some of our major funding inputs just from somebody saying, "Hey, I had a company that put quite a bit of money into us, and it was the main that he read something in a newspaper and called me and I almost didn't take the phone call."
Oh wow!
Because we get a lot of people trying to sell you that, and how they can do that. I'm sure you're going to do, and that's all right. You got to make a living. Yeah. But I was thinking it was one of those. It was 4:20 in the afternoon. I was about to get out of there, and they said, "So and so with this company is on the phone, wants to talk to you." I didn't know them. I didn't know the company. I almost said, "Take a message, tell them I'll call them tomorrow." But I sat down and took the message, and it ended up being one of the most top 10 people who have invested in us as an individual organization.
That's great.
But you never know when they're going to pop up and send you not just money, but in opportunities of service that will come up.
And I think that if you want to take that kind of to the next step, it's a heart-led kind of thing too. You know, I mean,
we don't know where the opportunity is going to come. And like I said, we can get a call. It was fun. We have he's a CFO of well, he's not now, he's retired, but he was a CFO of a large health company. He's now our head of our finance. And we had to project how much we just got through budgeting, in 20. And he said, okay, I see where the expenses are. I see how you're going to bring in that much money. I don't.
This is my hope.
I said, if you have a shoe store, how do you know how many pairs of shoes you're going to sell? You can say, well, I'm based on my past experience, based on what I think I can do. And that is a hard part because, right now, when you say we never charge, we never have, that is a really getting a more and more difficult task for us. That's why I don't get to do some of the things I enjoy the most of being out there doing those programs myself, being able to say, hey, I'll take that one. I'll go out and do that presentation. Yeah. Because of the administrative part. We have a huge machine that we have born and grown. Mm-hmm. And this machine to keep up and lively and healthy and doing what it's supposed to do has to be fed.
Yes. A challenge for sure.
It is.
Yeah. What a labor of love. If we circle back to the beginning for you, Clark, I mean, it's a passion that you have. It's a drive that you have.
We talk about people that come into the lives, and we did a timeline a few years back, and cut me off. I get anytime you need to cut me off.
You're good. Good.
We did a timeline, probably been 6 years ago. And I said, I want to see where would the impacts come from in JFI? Mm-hmm. We call it JFI, Jason Foundation, Inc. So JFI, and we drew it back in 1999. We were just 2 years still operating. We were just moving to a small little office after the things. I had a team board. Now the team board, they didn't sell donuts. They didn't do this. They were to help us in going out and raising awareness. We handed out trigger locks at a local Walmart.
Okay.
But they came to me and said, we need a national spokesperson. Now this is funny because in 1999, probably nobody outside of Middle Tennessee had ever heard of the Jason Foundation.
Yeah.
And we were small and really hadn't taken that big step that we took in 2001 yet.
Yeah.
But they came and said, we need a national spokesperson. And I was running out of things for them to do.
And
so I said, how do I keep these kids busy? I said, that's a great idea. I said, take the next couple of meetings. Y'all think about it, suggest it, talk it through, then bring me your suggestion. We'll see what we can do.
Okay.
Hey, I was keeping them busy. I'll be honest. The only thing I was doing was keeping them busy. And they came back a couple of weeks later and said, we've made our choice. And it was Philip Fulmer from the University of Tennessee.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
They were all kids. They were teenagers. Some of them, the guys were, and I had never met Philip Fulmer in my life.
Okay.
Never talked to him. And they gave that to me. And I went, gosh, this is something. I said, well, write a letter. Let me look at it and we'll send it to him. And they wrote a really nice letter, talked about Jason, talked about what we were trying to do. Would he help us?
Yeah.
And I approved it. I signed it. And I let them sign it too. And we sent it to him. And just general mail.
Okay.
It was probably 3 or 4 weeks later. I get a phone call. And it was Coach Fulmer.
Oh,
and
amazing.
He asked if I could come to Knoxville and talk to him about it. He said he would come to us, but it was spring practice.
Okay.
And so we went up there, and he said, if I do something to help you save one young person, tell me what to do.
That's great.
And he's still our national spokesperson today.
That's
great. I say that was pivotal. He said, how can we help get this message out? I said, well, we've got to raise it in communities. He called at that time Mark Rick.
Yeah.
Mark said, I'm on board. He said, Clark, come down and see me.
Oh, I love it.
The second phone call he made was Nick Saban, who was at LSU at the time.
Yes.
And Nick Saban said, Clark, come on down. Tell me how I can get involved.
Yeah.
And so with Coach, then he kept doing that and doing that and doing that. And through our coaches association, then it started touching companies. It started, you talked about the Jason Flatt Act. It got passed in Alabama. The way it got passed in Alabama is Nick Saban called the governor and said, "Why don't we have this in Alabama?" And the
it's
governor said, "Good
perfect.
question. Why can't,
Yeah.
And so our coaches have done a tremendous amount of things. And it all goes back to Coach Fulmer saying, "What can I do?"
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. And then I think back too about what you said earlier about what the youth were saying in terms of the people that they go to.
right.
They go to a coach. I mean, the responsibility of a coach is broad, obviously. But I mean, that shows the integrity of that individual
Oh, yes.
and the
And
multiple
when people,
individuals.
I'm out in crowd sometimes, especially when he was coaching, and you hear the negative part. And I said, they don't know Philip. He
Yeah.
is such a great and kind and passionate person. And the hours that the hundreds of hours he's put in with us and
Yeah.
the phone calls he's made to connect us with people. When he left and left the coaching, calls me and said, "Clark, you probably want to get somebody else to take because I'm no longer a head coach of an SEC school." And I said, "No,
No.
you'll be our national spokesperson as long as you want to be." And
Oh,
so he's
that's
still very, very active with
great.
us.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. What do you think is the biggest blessing out of all of this for you, even personally as well as professionally?
Greatest blessing is know that there's probably a young person alive today that wouldn't have been alive if it hadn't been for all of our 26 years. I don't care about it. I'm sure there's hundreds, there's thousands have been touched and changed. Maybe, I don't know. We don't try to do that number. That's not chest bump, but I can tell without any hesitation, there's one person at least alive today that would not have been. And if I can put 26 years of work into something and it saved that one life, it's been worth it.
Yeah.
And that's how what I believe, and we know that's the case. And
Yeah.
it's now I'd like for it to be more than that one, but we know that there's at least one, and that becomes. I always do this, like I said, administratively. I have to raise funds, and we do. Most people say, "Where are you funded from?" It's not the government, even though the state of Tennessee helps us tremendously. I will say
Correct.
that they help us with Project Tennessee, but outside the state of Tennessee. It's mostly corporate America, and I
Right.
sit down, and if I find a CEO that's passionate, that loves their employees, loves their families, I want to do everything I can to help to them. Uh, they will invest in us. I don't ever ask them to give. Nobody likes to give. They like to invest. So what are you going to get back? We're going to help you and help your employees. But I always ask them if your investment in the Jason Foundation, how important do you think if we save one life? And then before you answer that, though, I say, but that one life is your son or daughter.
Yeah.
How important would your investment in us be?
Yeah. It's invaluable.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's how I feel about it. So, and some people smile, but we've been fortunate. This is not a fundraising show. We're
No.
solid. We're on our feet. We have never turned down an opportunity to provide services since 1997. Now, sometimes it's been tough, but we've always had it come about.
And Clark, that's amazing. I mean, that just speaks volumes to your integrity. I said that a little bit ago, integrity, but but your passion and your drive for what it is that you're doing and the people that are working for you and the people that are, I love it, that are investing in
We
this.
have a great corporate team at Hendersonville, Tennessee, and we've got a great bunch of passionate people. Several of them been with me for 17, 18, or a couple of them 21 and 26 years. So
Wow.
we've got a well-seasoned staff, but we appreciate what you're doing. Anything that you can do to help. You're helping us that somebody might hear this that's worried about their son or daughter and hadn't taken that step. This might give them the courage to say, "I've got to take a step. I've got to do it." So it's very important.
Knowledge is power and awareness is power. And I think the biggest thing for me, the biggest takeaway is not to be fearful of this subject matter, but to be very mature about it. You said that earlier, and be very, very open about it because it
Training
is
is important, Don. If you think about it, why are you fearful of situations? It's because you don't understand them.
Oh yeah.
Like if I set you up in front of a bunch of people and there's 200 people there and I say, "Tell us about nuclear physics, Don."
Yeah.
You need to speak 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Now, you might be able to, but most people would be really scared because they can't talk about nuclear. They know nothing about it, and they
Right.
feel very uncomfortable in a scared situation. But if you knew about it, then it would. It's the same way with mental health issues, anxiety,
Yeah.
depression, suicidal ideation. If
Yeah.
you don't have to be a counselor, but I know enough about it to know what questions, what I should do, what I shouldn't do, how to make the situation safe. And
Yes.
then, and most importantly, I know where I can go to get help to help this
Yes.
person.
Yeah.
And that's all it's got to do. It's not any kind of really secret type of formula. It's being caring, noticing behavior, and
Mhm.
then responding.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Being aware.
right,
Being aware.
right.
Yeah. Clark, thank you so much for all your information, for your words, for your vulnerable sharing about your personal experience with suicide
Right.
and everything that has gone into it. I think your perspective is so healthy. And I know it probably wasn't, it took a while to get to that point, but look what you have built out of that to help other people. And look what your son's memory, how it lives on to be
Sure.
able to help individuals.
Well, I appreciate this opportunity. I really do. This is not a tagline or anything. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. The reason we looked at this and when Brett brought it to me, this opportunity. There's people that are listening to you that in numbers they have confidence in what you do with your show. They know what you bring out is something good. And therefore, there's going to be some people we're going to influence, and there's going to be some people who will help because of this opportunity. Thank you. Thank your listeners and
Oh,
viewers too.
yes, 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 sir. Amen to all of that. Absolutely. Well, listen, go outside and have some fun in the sunshine for a little bit today since it's
Will
sunny
do.
here, actually.
Yes.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks so much, Clark. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for tuning in today, guys. If you have an idea for an interview or you would like to share your own story, I would love to hear from you. Send me a message at dawn@thesoulgoals.com. If you enjoyed today's podcast, I'd love for you to leave a review and to consider following and subscribing to the show. With weekly releases, there is always another interesting story to be heard. I do hope that today's guests and their words have helped to bring some extra light to your day and encouraged you to find a deeper space of your very own soul goals. Until next time, friends, remember that everyone has a story, and every story matters.